By 2030, young Africans, typically defined as those under 25, are projected to make up 42% of the world's youth. More than 60% of Africa's population is under the age of 25. By the mid-century, a significant 1/3 of all sub-Saharan African population will be children under 15. So while the exact number is not right, there you go. 5 to 6 African countries poised for growth. Nigeria, Ivory Coast, Congo, Rwanda, fastest growing economies. Why is Africa vibrant and full of opportunity? Here are 4 bullet points that back up Gary V's point in Africa. Youthful population, fast growing economies, massive population boom, infrastructure and investment, both regional, tech, agriculture, mining, and global investments. Notably, China and now increasingly the UAE and the US are heavily investing in African infrastructure.
The entrepreneurial class around the world is waking up to the fact that Africa is on the rise and is beginning to have a revolutionary boom. This is with the backdrop of the fact that where these entrepreneurs currently play and invest is on a decline. In this video, we're going to explore this concept and how you out there, be it African or diaspora, can recognize this trend and take advantage of it. Thank you so much for checking out this video today. I really appreciate it. If you don't know me, my name is TJ. I'm Nigerian and British mixed, and on this channel, we talk about African geopolitics. So once again, I've put down all my thoughts in an organized manner, and I'm going to read this out to you today so I don't miss anything. So this week, Ethiopia's Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam was officially inaugurated, a landmark for the continent and a pivot for regional power. Built on the Blue Nile near the Sudanese border, its installed capacity exceeds 5,000 megawatts, enough to double Ethiopia's electricity output and supply neighbors through power pool interconnectors. For Ethiopia, this means fewer blackouts, cheaper power for industry, and leverage to export electricity to markets like Kenya and South Sudan. For the region, it's a clean energy anchor that lowers the cost of doing business and proves that African-led mega projects can move from blueprint to reality. Place Rwanda's news beside it. In Kigali, pilotless electric air taxis completed public demonstration flights and entered an early rollout phase during the Aviation African Summit. The message is simple. Advanced air mobility is not a distant promise reserved only for the West. Rwanda is turning it into services that cut congestion, shorten medical evacuations, and open up new commuter corridors. Alongside this, Rwanda has already made drone delivery for medical supplies to hospitals a standard practice, saving lives and improving access to healthcare in both urban and rural areas for several years. Energy and mobility, 2 of the hardest sectors, are already showing the leapfrog dynamic in real time. Now zoom out. Demographics, urbanization, and technology adoption are converging. By 2050, 1 in 4 people on Earth will be African, and Africa's working age population will be the largest in the world. Mobile internet penetration and digital payments are scaling, and several African economies continue to post world-leading growth.
And you think Africa is big enough to get to $100 million?
Are you looking at markets outside of Africa?
Africa has 54 markets. We're looking at Africa only. In 7 years, Africa will be home to 1/3 of the global population of youth. By 2050, 1 out of every 5 customers on the internet will be in Africa. Africa in the past decade has, out of the top 10 countries with the fastest growing GDP, 5 of those markets are in Africa. Retail spend in 2018 was about $1.4 trillion. 2/3 of that was consumer packaged goods. And it's considered one of the fastest growing regions for consumer packaged goods spending in the world. On top of that, when it comes to profitability margins, it's the most profitable region, bar none, to East Asia.
This is when you drop the mic.
The center of gravity for markets and labor is shifting. Some partners have understood this. China expanded zero-tariff access for least developed African countries to cover essentially all tariff lines, and has signaled readiness to extend broad duty-free treatment across African partners with diplomatic ties. That is how you court the future. Open your market and build capacity on the continent. Europe, meanwhile, struggles to update its playbook.
Europe is falling apart. Many continue to deny this is happening, but here are 5 indisputable facts to prove it. Number 1, Mississippi is now wealthier than Europe's top economies. So America's poorest state now has a higher per capita GDP than the big 5 economies of Europe. We're talking UK, Germany, France, Italy, and Spain. Number 2, European spending power is collapsing. The disposable income for the average American is now 80% higher than the average UK or French citizen and about 50% higher than the average German. Number 3, European companies have stagnated. So Nvidia alone is worth more than every company on the UK stock market combined. Number 4, Europe has the lowest fertility rate of any continent. So all those generous social welfare programs that Europe is famous for, they're all going to collapse because there are going to be way more seniors taking from the system than there are young people paying into it. But there is one way for Europe to get out of this mess, and that's through the potential productivity gains of new tech like AI and robotics. But sadly, and this brings us to number 5, Europe is not competitive in any of these areas. There are no European AI leaders, no chip makers, no rocket companies, no social media giants, no relevant players in space technology, drones, battery storage, crypto and blockchain, robots.
The European Parliament condemned the East African crude oil pipeline on environmental grounds, while coal plants restarted at home after the Russian energy shock brought forward by the Russia-Ukraine war. The EU's carbon border adjustment mechanism begins charging imports in high-emission sectors from 2026, hitting products like cement, steel, fertilizers, aluminium, electricity, and hydrogen, precisely the upstream industries African countries need to climb the value chain. Museums still hesitate over permanent restitution for looted African artifacts, offering loans that land badly with the younger generation. At the United Nations, the UK and France retain veto power, while a continent of 54 states holds none. Despite decades of calls for permanent African representation, diplomacy has felt tone deaf as well. Ukraine's president came to Africa offering aid and food, as if assuming Africans were desperate for handouts rather than seeking real dialogue with leaders. The approach felt arrogant and tone deaf. At the same time, Russia opened up all kinds of partnership deals across Africa, deepened security and energy ties that many leaders viewed as more practical. The Sahel region is a cautionary footnote rather than the main story here. France's security role unraveled across Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger after years of operations that failed to deliver stability. African governments are asserting policy independence, replacing outside tutelage with transactional partnerships that reflect their interests. The Africa Free Trade Initiative gives the continent a path to a 1.4 billion person common market. Corridors are being stitched together. Power interconnections from Ethiopia southward, standard gauge rail links under construction or upgraded, cross-border fiber and data centers coming online, fintech rails from Lagos to Nairobi to Cairo are normalizing instant payment and remittances. Entrepreneurs who treat Africa as tomorrow's market are already late. Those who wait for perfect conditions will discover that the ladder has been pulled up by bolder first movers from Asia and the Middle East. Africa still has distance to cover, governance weaknesses, debt stress, and leaders corrupted by external interests, which are all real obstacles. Mindsets must shift from citizens expecting handouts to citizens building enterprises, from officials gatekeeping to officials enabling. Yet the compounding forces are in motion. Population scale, cheap and clean power, AI tools that collapse time to skill. EV two-wheelers and buses replacing costly fuel imports, precision agriculture and logistics tech that prizes open landlocked markets. The curve is gradual until it's not. Then it looks like an overnight change. To keep Africa's growth strong, governments need to make trade between African countries easier. Goods should be able to move from one country to another without endless paperwork and hidden costs. Building reliable roads, railways, ports, and power lines across borders will connect markets and lower prices for everyone. Investment should go into clean energy, local factories, and processing plants so that Africa sells more finished products instead of only raw materials. Education systems need to prepare young people for modern jobs, especially in technology, energy, health, and logistics. Travel should also be easier within Africa so that businesses and workers can move freely across borders. Governments must also create safe and transparent ways for Africans abroad to invest back home. For individuals, the challenge is to prepare for the new economy. Learning practical skills in areas like solar power, data, farming, technology, and logistics will create jobs and businesses. People can form groups or cooperatives to share equipment, land, and storage so they can reach bigger markets together. Selling services and products online is another way to earn and reinvest locally. Partnerships between the diaspora and those on the continent can bring capital, skills, and new opportunities. Africans everywhere should tell their own stories, show their achievements, and push back against stereotypes that make outsiders doubt the continent's potential. To the diaspora, consider timing. Returning gets harder as asset prices rise and incumbents entrench. The window when skills and modest capital can buy outsized opportunity will not stay open forever. If you plan to relocate or build a base on the continent, start testing the move now. Set up small ventures, open local banking, establish supply relations, and learn regulatory terrain. Waiting until everything is ready means arriving after the best ground has already been taken. Europe still has a choice. Equal partnerships are possible, co-finance transmission lines that move the renewable power across borders, back African-led manufacturing rather than extractive procurement, support mobility and visa openings to unlock trade and services, recognize permanent African representation in global governance, move from lecturing to listening. The alternative is a slide into irrelevance. A shrinking market with aging consumers. Double down on protection and process while Africa's shares global demand rises. Concrete scenes to illustrate the shift can already be found across the continent. Picture a steel mill in Ethiopia running continuously because hydropower finally makes it affordable. In Kigali, an eVTOL cuts a 55-minute crosstown journey to 10 minutes. And emergency response becomes a daily life-saving service. Nigerian and Kenyan SMEs now ship to China under zero-tariff rules and reinvest their profits into value-added process lines. A Pan-African fintech moves salary payments instantly between 5 countries, with costs so low that even micro-employees formalize their payrolls. This is a dream that we can achieve if we desire it. This is the moment to simplify the argument. Energy plus mobility unlocks productivity. A continental market converts scale into investment. Skills amplified by AI compress timelines. When these pieces compound, Africa's slope steepens. The continent will still wrestle with governance and capacity, but the direction is set. Europe can either work with it or watch it pass by. The transformation is incremental and then sudden. Week by week, substations are upgraded, rail extended, fiber lightens up, small factories switch on, and new services go from pilot to daily habit. One morning, the map looks different. More power, fewer borders and obstacles in the way, more companies producing instead of importing. Those who engage early will be embedded in supply chains and institutions. Those who ignore the signals will be stuck debating yesterday's model while tomorrow's markets are spoken for. The trend is there, ladies and gentlemen, and I would love to know if you are part of the trend. What do you think about all of this? Please put it down in the comments. But if you have nothing to say, would it be too much for me to ask you to write the words "Africa is rising" in the comments section? It just lets me know that you watched the video to the end, you like what I'm doing, and you want me to continue. Thank you so much for watching this video today, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.